Patriots are on the fan on this Monday, the second day in February, the day after. And the day after a Super Bowl can be either a very, tedious day or a very interesting day. And obviously, there's some things to talk about after last night's game. Now, let me say this. I'm sure a lot of you have seen a lot of stuff last night and this morning. I'm sure you've seen a lot of analysis. I'm sure you've actually watched people try to explain that away. And as you know, if you listen to this program, listen to me, you know that I don't put a lot of stake in play calls. I think play calls are overrated in most times. I think that specific play calls, in the grand scheme of things, often are not as important as people make them. There are exceptions. And one of the exceptions is the final seconds of the Super Bowl when the game is on the line. And that wasn't one of the poorer play calls in the history of the Super Bowl. And that wasn't a play that you can dissect in 10 to 20 different ways. That was the single worst big moment call in the history of sports. That was the dumbest, most ridiculous, no excuse, no alibi, no reason to do what they did. It is inconceivable that they did what they did last night. I'm sorry. There's no excuse. There's no explanation. Pete's explanation was stupid. Okay? He tried to come up with one. He took the blame. Bevel's explanation made no sense. They were playing for the next down? What? They were playing for the next down. What? Who calls a play on the goal line in the Super Bowl down 4 points playing for the next down? This was a brain cramp. This was as dumb, and the idea that the play caller with the head coach on a splitter got this play. They got this together. Whoever said pass, whether it was the coach to the coordinator or the coordinator to coach and then to the quarterback, how one of the three didn't turn around and say, "Are you nuts?" There's no act of deception here. There's nothing. First of all, I'm not even going to get into that running a pass play out of that formation into the middle of the field made no sense. The only pass, and a pass I will not even accept as an option there, but the only pass you could ever even think of throwing there would be out of a tight formation, out of a power formation with tight formation, which means you're all in, your tight ends are in, you're in a jumbo look, you're in an I formation, and you don't give it to the back, and then you sprint a guy to the corner by himself, and if he's not by himself, you throw it in the 15th row. That's the only pass play you could even consider at that point of the game. But to go into a pass formation, spread it out, and throw a slant into the middle of the field, if I live to be 200, I'll never see anything as dumb in my life. Listen, sometimes there's just no explanation for just being dumb. This was a wonderful game. We can get into all the twists and turns. We can get into this Pat comeback. We can get into a million things. We can get into things that happened before the half. We can get into the Lane injury. We can get into the bad coverage on this guy. The Pats' bad coverage before the half. The bad coverage on Gronkowski. We can go down the line. Wonderful performances like Edelman, I thought was the best player on the field last night. I'll give you 100 different things we can talk about, but it doesn't matter. None of it matters. After a circus play, not as good a catch as Tyree because the catch was easier. It landed on him. It was just a fluky play, but it happens. The play happens. And they now go from being a team that's about to lose to a team that is about to win. The Pats are stunned. You hand it to Marshawn Lynch, who almost scores on first down. You now have the game. The Pats have capitulated. They are not calling timeout. They're saying, you know what? We're going to live and die with what's going on here. What we're going to happen here is we're going to save our timeouts because we're going to think about, I'm sure they're working on a kick return over there, and they're figuring that Marshawn's going to score on our next play anyway. So they saved their timeouts. And they let the clock run. And you figure you have a guy who's got 100 yards rushing, who is the most unstoppable short yardage back we have seen in a decade. This isn't a team that doesn't have a running back. This is a team that's got the best guy to do that in the world. They couldn't stop him once, no less 3 times. I would bet you my house they couldn't stop him twice, no less 3 times. I'm not even sure they'd stop him once. He almost scored from the 5 on the first down. Line up, power, block it, touchdown. He probably would go in backwards. Then you're worried about kick return and Tom making a play or a pass interference. We all understand there's that 10% chance the Pats could have come back and got a field goal. Okay, maybe they could have. I'm not going to tell you that it's 100%. It's not. But it's, 10%. Because they're going to kick it out of the end zone. And they're going to have to make 3 plays against that defense in 20 seconds. And kick a field goal. All right. So be it. We're never going to get to that. The bottom line was Seattle was a yard away, and they got everything. They have 3 downs. They're a yard away. They just got 4 yards on first down. The clock's running. The Pats are devastated. Brady has his hands in his head in his hands. No, I can't believe this is happening to me again in Arizona. I'm losing again. And all of a sudden, we go to a spread and throw a slant. Forget whether the quarterback executed the slant or not. It's irrelevant. When you put the ball in the air, 2 out of 3 things that happen are bad. When you put the ball in the air is when you have to. In football, you never put the ball in the air if you don't have to. Now, if you run it there on second down and he gets stoned, you call timeout, and then you have some clock issues to think about. You know you're going to run it on 4th down. What are you going to do? Are you going to hammer it on 3rd down and take your 1 chance, or do you want to give yourself 2 chances? And that's where the play fake would come in on 3rd down. They were 1 timeout short of that part of it. That does not even come into the discussion until after you have hammered them on 2nd down. And the way he ran on 1st down, they almost didn't stop him. If he did twist it the other way, he would have scored on 1st down from the 5. You're never stopping that back. Nobody stops him. He had 102 yards in that game, and he'd had an ordinary game. I have never in my life I've seen teams, listen, I've seen a lot of teams blow games. I've seen a lot of peculiar endings, but not one when it came down to you actually taking the championship and saying, wait a second, we don't want this. You take it, it's yours, and throw it across the field. Now, I'm telling you that if they had scored on that play and won the game, I would have come in here and told you Seattle won, but they made the dumbest decision I've ever seen had they put the ball in the air there. So the idea that I wouldn't have brought this up or somebody wouldn't have brought this up, this made no sense. Sometimes things make no sense. This made no sense. There's no excuse. And their excuse is so feeble because no excuse makes sense. We were going to hammer him on 3rd and 4th down. What? You're throwing it on 2nd down because you know you can have. That's what Pete said. Well, we were going to hammer him on 3rd and 4th down. Well, then why wouldn't you just hammer them on 2nd down? Why would you risk your championship on 2nd down? They basically said we were trying to get rid of the down. Why? You were passing it. An incomplete pass was not going to help you there. The same time, if you would run it in versus you throw it in. If you're figuring, well, no, we didn't want to score, then why would you throw it? We were setting up for the last 2 downs. What? It was a clock issue. How was it a clock issue? You had everything in your favor. Everything was perfect. You couldn't have had it any better. The clock's running. You have a timeout. You have 3 downs and the best short yardage back in the world. And you made him a spectator. those players wanted to say they tried to be good guys. And the only thing that kept this team from devastation is the idea that a lot of those guys, almost all of them, had won last year. So it took away some of the pain, or at least they didn't react the way the team would have reacted had they never won before. But the idea that that's what you came away, that three guys thought of that, and actually one didn't say, guys, wait a second, what are we doing? We're throwing it here? Why? And not only that, I'm not agreeing for 1 second that I would even contemplate throwing it. But if you were going to throw it, why would you throw it out of a throwing formation into the middle of the field? Throw it out of a complete power running formation where you have a play action pass. They jump to the goal line. They're in goal line. They're in tight. Everybody's going down and in as a defender. And you take it and you throw it to the back of the end zone and there's nobody there. Why throw a slant inside? You never throw the ball inside in the end zone if you don't have to. And they didn't have to even throw it. No, if they were in there playing fourth down, I'd be like, all right, I don't like it, but I could live with it. On fourth down, with no back. On fourth down with him there, I'm still running it. Because he's 90% to score on any single down. If I tell you that you have one play from the 1 yard line with Marshawn Lynch to win the Super Bowl from the 1, but you got one play, how do you feel? I think you feel damn good. You had 3, and you threw them away. 3. I've never, ever. That's why it was a fight, because the players were just so insane that they lost. They didn't even know what to do. I forgave both sides the fight because you know what? Because Gronkowski, the Pats should have been so happy they didn't fight. But you know what? The guy did hit Gronkowski, so you know what? He got mad. I understand that. And I actually understand Seattle because they were just so stunned and upset. I mean, I don't know how you'd face your team. Plus, I don't know what. Didn't somebody think, guys, can we rethink this for a second? Just for a second. We have Marshawn Lynch. He got 4 yards on first down. He went from the 5 to the 1, and they barely got him down. Barely got him down on first down. Barely. We got the clock running. We got a timeout. It's 2nd and goal from the 1. We got the beast mode here, and we're not giving them the ball. Like I said, there is not a way to rationalize it, defend it, explain it, or digest it. It is simply the worst call ever. And it cost them a championship. That game was Seattle's. Yes, they got a fluky play to get down there. I'm not saying they didn't. But you know what? That happens. That's sports. It would have been remembered as this crazy catch. It also would have been remembered as this a good game. And it was a terrific game. I mean, you had everything there. You had Seattle taking charge. You had New England coming back. You had, wonderful performances. I thought some guys played terrific in the game. There was some questionable stuff on both sides. Seattle's defense clearly was not nearly as good as it was last year. They also had some guys hurt. Clearly that lane injury was enormous in the game. Enormous. That was underplayed. It should have been played up much bigger. It was an enormous factor in the game. But it didn't matter. It came down to one play. And Pete decided they handed to Pete the trophy, and Pete said, you know what? I got it last year. Here, take it. And threw it across the field. And listen, I'm not saying Butler didn't make a play. But that's a play that Butler never, ever, 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 ever should have had a chance to make. The only thing Seattle should have been worrying about is getting the kickoff deep and making sure that they tackled inbounds and kept the Pats from getting the 50 yards they would have needed to get a field goal. I mean, that's why we watch, you know that? Because you never know when it's just going to get goofy. And that was goofy. Your calls, and there's a lot of the stuff that we got from that day, including, I'll get to all of it. We got a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff from the pregame, a lot of stuff the postgame, a whole lot of stuff to get to. But there's really only one storyline, and that is they turned Marshawn Lynch into a spectator. Here's the Mink Man.